Hello from Student Services. We hope that you are enjoying your virtual Writers Week experience. Writing is a great way to communicate our creativity and ideas to the world. We appreciate all the effort and bravery that go along with the sharing of any art form. In the event that one of these talks brings up some difficult reactions or feelings, feel free to connect with Student Services in one of these ways. Email your counselor, schedule a Zoom with your counselor through Sign Up Genius, call Student Services for any assistance by calling Friends main number or dialing 847-755-2630. For a more immediate concern, an on-call person is available during blocks 1 to 4 on the Zoom link that has been posted to your class Schoology page or scanning this QR code. We would be happy to talk with you in any of these ways. Enjoy the week.
All right, folks out there in Zoom land, welcome to another portion of Writers Week 27. I am Eric Schaefer. We also have with us today Sabra Gerber and Marilyn Burdick, and we are all three members of FREM's esteemed English department. And first off, we just have to say thank you to the people who make this possible. It takes a lot of hard work, and the fact that we're having it this year is a testament to that effort. So Russ Anderson, Gina Eng, thank you so much for everything that you guys do to create this space for students and teachers and other speakers to have a voice and have that voice be heard. And also thanks to the boosters. You guys have always been a big supporter of Writers Week, and anyone else out there in the English department that lends a hand, thank you. So thanks to the tech department. That's me, that's us. Hey, yeah, okay, tech department. Anyway, today we're here to introduce my former department chair, Gary Anderson, my former teacher, Tony Romano, and I guess he's not a former mentor, but my mentor, Kevin Brewner. All three have played an instrumental role in who I am as a teacher and an educator, and I aspire to be like them in so many ways. Those three partners in prose, anyway, when we used to call these guys the three old guys, and then when we got asked to introduce them, we're looking at the screen and we're saying, hey, we're the three old guys now. We're the new three old guys. So, it's amazing how time passes, but we're so excited to be sharing this with you today. So, Marilyn?
Well, thank you, Eric. Yeah, these three men are so near and dear to not only the three of us, but I think so many of us in the English department that had the privilege to know them and work with them. The three gentlemen we're talking about have since retired, which is why I think they are going to look so happy when you see them in their presentation. They have been kind of what Eric was talking about. They've been mentors for us. They've been teachers, obviously, for Eric, literally, but for all of us. They've taught us how to be better teachers. They've been friends and confidants for us over the years, a good ear to listen to us when we needed it. We've seen them in their writing process. All three of them are published authors. And so from idea in your head to getting it down on paper or computer, the whole writing process we've seen work with them, editing, re-editing, peer editing, et cetera, to finished product. And I just know I've learned a lot from watching them go through that as well. And they're just also three of the nicest, kindest people that I've ever met in my life. And one last very important thing to me, that something that I share with all three of these wonderful gentlemen, and we spent hours talking about this, good and bad, is our devout loyalty to the Chicago Cubs. We are all huge, big Cub fans. I think all four of us have written about the Cubs at various points in our lives. And so we share that as well. But I think you all are in for a big treat today to be able to see these three gentlemen and hear what they have to share with us.
And it was so fun for us to sit and talk about these guys for the last, I know this is a 3-minute video, 2 minutes. I don't know how long this is, but I promise there's been a lot of editing and there's been some revisions and editing going on over here. And that's been us talking, right? We've been sitting and we were just enjoying sharing these memories. And what was kind of cool is we were talking about all of these different things with these men that we adore, is we all feel such similar feelings, right? Like we feel like we talk about Gary and we're remembering how he is a listener and a reader and an encourager for all of us, and how Tony is playful and makes us laugh, and also is taller than he appears. And how Kevin, we all took a writing class from Kevin, which is such a positive memory for all of us. But Kevin encourages us to write, and then when we're finished writing, to write and revise and write some more. And all of these men have really been people who have ingrained these values into us, who help us understand to take things, as seriously as you need to, but also to keep that perspective. And so I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful to spend this Zoom time with the two of you as well, and with all of you in Friendland. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Gina and Russ, again, for making this happen, and Tony and Gary before you. There's a lot of magic behind the scenes that we're not seeing, but they make happen. So thank you to everyone, and enjoy.
All right. And now you have it. There you go. Enjoy watching the three old guys.
Welcome back to part two. I'd like to say a couple things about Gary. He and I and a couple students won some a contest at Waukegan Public Library. Waukegan was the hometown of Ray Bradbury before he moved out to California. And this stuff is a connection about how Bradbury and all writers are kind of connected. So go ahead, take it away, Gary.
Yeah, Ray Bradbury would have been 100 years old. His birthday was, I don't remember exactly when it was, 6 weeks, a couple months ago. Time is kind of right now. But on Ray Bradbury's 100th birthday, I wrote this blog post, and I'd like to share it with you now. So it goes like this. Today would be the 100th birthday of American writer Ray Bradbury. So it seems like a good time to tell about a couple of ways that Ray Bradbury made a difference in my life as a reader and teacher. First, I need to offer a little background on how I approached reading in high school. Although I was always a reader, I never read the books assigned in high school, except for one. I was the kid who read horror books. A guy named Stephen King had started putting out interesting novels when I was in high school, and those, along with whatever vampire books I could find, constituted most of my reading life. I was the kid who had a Dark Shadows tie-in novel or an issue of Fangoria propped up inside of whatever textbook I was supposed to be reading in class. As a sophomore during the 1973-74 school year in a small town in Iowa, I took an elective English class labeled science fiction. The teacher was Miss Mount, and she was lovely. I still didn't do much of the work, but when she passed out copies of Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles, something about it captured my attention, maybe because it was just close enough in style to the other books I was reading on my own. I tore through The Martian Chronicles, and then I reread it. That book became the only assigned title I ever read in high school. If not for Ray Bradbury, I would have gone through high school without touching a single assigned book. Considering my later career path, I'm grateful to Bradbury for that. Because of him, I know how it feels when a resistant reader finally clicks with a book for school. Somewhere along the way, I read Fahrenheit 451 and a handful of Bradbury short stories. The only Bradbury title I taught consistently was The Pedestrian, one of the better selections in our humongous literature anthology. The Pedestrian deals with a lonely figure who walks at night while trying to avoid the attention of his totalitarian government. A similar theme permeates Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. Although Fahrenheit 451 was taught in our school's curriculum, I did not teach the class that included it. My colleague Kevin was a Bradbury enthusiast, so when Kevin's students came to my class the following year, they could easily connect The Pedestrian with Fahrenheit 451, and Ray Bradbury seemed like an old friend to them. Flash forward about 20 years from me being the kid who liked The Martian Chronicles. By the mid-1990s, I was teaching in a fine school in the Chicago suburbs. Our English department was robust with teacher writers and skilled classroom magicians who revealed significance in both canonical and contemporary literature and made countless students claim writer as part of their identities. We encourage students to pursue publication and writing contest opportunities. In 1995, we started a grand enterprise called Writers Week that brought more than 200 writers to our campus over 25 years and spotlighted student and faculty writers from every department for an entire week. We investigated the possibility of inviting Ray Bradbury to Writers Week, and his management told us Bradbury received hundreds of invitations each year from which he chose 10 to accept. If an invitation was accepted by Bradbury, the fee was far above our ability to pay. One of the writing contests we encouraged students to enter was the annual Ray Bradbury Creative Writing Awards, sponsored by the Waukegan Public Library in Waukegan, Illinois, the birthplace of Ray Bradbury. Okay, hang on a second. I have discovered that I don't have the end of this. One of the writing contests we encourage students to enter was the annual Ray Bradbury Creative Writing Awards, sponsored by the Waukegan Public Library in Waukegan, Illinois, the birthplace of Ray Bradbury. Because so many students at our school were Bradbury fans due to Kevin's excellent teaching, motivating students to enter that contest was easy. An especially nice aspect of this contest was that it had divisions for both students and adults. Although I can't remember exactly which year it was, several of our students entered the contest, and Kevin and I walked the talk and also entered. Several weeks later, we received some exciting news. Not only had 2 of our students won prizes, but Kevin and I had also placed in the adult division. In addition, this year, Ray Bradbury himself would be attending the ceremony in a rare visit to his hometown from his residence of 50 years in Palm Springs, California. Ray Bradbury spoke at the awards ceremony, and he was wildly garrulous and obviously sentimental about being back in Waukegan. Each of the award winners received a certificate signed by Bradbury and a hearty handshake from him. After the ceremony, the library hosted a reception. The 4 of us from our school, the student winners, Ben and Kiki, Kevin and me, all waited for our turn to talk to the great man. He was charming and friendly, especially to the students. Kevin and I told him about our Writers Week, and he said he would love to attend, but he was currently busy with a film project of the Martian Chronicles directed by Mel Gibson. Then Ray Bradbury said, "When it's all finished, I will come to your school and I'll bring Mel Gibson." We were, of course, flabbergasted and delighted and couldn't wait to tell our students and colleagues the exciting news. Of course, that film was never made. Then Bradbury suffered a stroke in 1999 and began a period of physical decline that eventually ended in his death in 2012. Ray Bradbury's influence continues to this day. In the years since I discovered the value of in-class independent reading, I'm always glad to see Ray Bradbury's book show up in students' hands. The excellent graphic novel adaptation of Fahrenheit 451 is especially popular. Here's a little coda. Last spring, I was the university field instructor for a bright young student teacher working at one of the high schools in Waukegan, Illinois. Her students were reading Fahrenheit 451. I was delighted that a new teacher and her students were reading Ray Bradbury's book in his hometown. Fahrenheit 451 is completely relevant for our troubled times, and students can readily make the connections between Bradbury's dystopia and present-day America. For me, The Martian Chronicles is more entertaining than Fahrenheit 451, but Fahrenheit 451 is clearly the more important novel. In fact, Ray Bradbury's simple tombstone in Los Angeles states only his name, years of life, and the words, author of Fahrenheit 451. That's the end of that.
That must have been quite a thrill for you too. You're muted, Kevin.
Bradbury rarely left California.
He didn't like to fly, right?
He did not. I don't think he ever did until that visit. I did see him at Harper one time, and I waited in a long line to have him for his signature and a copy of Fahrenheit 451.
So you have a signed copy from him?
Maybe. I know I got him to sign a poster I have for Something Wicked This Way Comes. So I've got that on my wall up there.
Now, Gary, you kind of alluded to it, but when you assigned a book in class, did your experience as a high school student play into it, or how did it play into it? Were you more nurturing, or did you take?
When I assigned a book in class,
Yeah, did you have like a little pep talk, or? How'd you
well,
go?
yeah, and I knew that if there were kids there like me, they weren't going to read it. They were going to do spark notes. They were going to just kind of listen to enough of what's going on in class to be able to contribute if they could, and somehow limp along. There are students who would obviously read it and absorb it, and I certainly admire that. But I also knew that there were no illusions about the fact that that was everybody. So I try to break it into smaller chunks. I did a fair amount of reading out loud. I also didn't want to have a situation where if they didn't read it at the beginning, they were toast for 3 weeks. And so I would assume that there were some people who weren't reading. And so I would kind of like, okay, if you didn't read this much, here's what you should probably know. If you fell off the back of the truck, get back on now, and you're going to be okay with this understanding. So yeah, I could empathize. I could relate to the slackers, that's for sure.
So I'm guessing none of your teachers were that compassionate about this, like you are, like you're describing here.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't want to judge them too much, but Miss Mount at least had the good sense to give me a book that worked, you know.
It's cool. Okay. So I'm going to do this piece. It's in response to Gary's reminding me last summer that it was Bradbury's 100th birthday. So last summer I received an email, because I don't use Twitter or Facebook, I suppose, from Gary Anderson reminding me that this was the 100th birthday of Ray Bradbury. Along with a reminder, he sent a picture of Kiki Sismopoulos and Ben Branham sitting with Bradbury, Gary, and me. Kiki and Ben won the student competition for a Waukegan Public Library contest in honor of Bradbury on one of his rare trips outside of California, where he moved after his childhood in Waukegan. I left to go on a rambling search for, I don't know, maybe what I searched for was that connection between all who write and others who have written. Recalling the first Bradbury book I read, The Martian Chronicles, I went in search of a copy in my house, only discovered that I owned many Bradbury books, but not that one. I do recall owning a copy where I had so many notes that I threw the copy away, but never replaced it. On AbeBooks, I found a new copy and a used, rarer copy, one of 2,000 numbered and signed by both Bradbury and the illustrator. I ordered them. Cost me a chunk of change, too. I was going to respond to Gary, but I'm not sure I ever did because I became lost in Bradbury. Now, this may seem like an aside, but I assure you that everything threads together. A few years ago, I had cancer, and one of the treatments was a drug called Lupron. One of the side effects was that the drug caused me to be very emotional. I cried at movies. I cried at TV shows. I cried at pictures. I cried sometimes at commercials. I felt a wreck. I'd never been like this before. In one of the scenes in Fahrenheit 451, another Bradbury book, the main character, Montag, reads a poem in front of his wife's friends. When he arrives at Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach, one woman whose husband is away at war weeps. The others are angry at Montag for having made them feel anything. At first, I couldn't recall what book or under what circumstance the quote came to me. Yet I eventually recalled the scene from Fahrenheit 451. Whether empathy or Lupron, tears fell from my eyes. Note, poetry in Bradbury stirs emotion because his prose is poetry. Try reading the Martian Chronicles without paying attention to Bradbury's use of senses and colors and emotion. Read There Will Come Soft Rains by Sarah Teasdale once, just once, and you never forget the words. He uses this in The Martian Chronicles with no one there to hear the mechanical recording of the white recording of the poem while being consumed by fire. Another poem quoted by Bradbury in The Martian Chronicles is so we'll go no more a roving, by Lord Byron, written in the late 1700s or early 1800s. Bradbury recreates the line of poetry between these poets, his own prose, and us as readers, students, and observers. Maybe the first time I read these lines, I did not cry. But by this time, between Byron, Arnold, Bradbury, Brewner, Anderson, Sysmopoulos, and Branham, I felt the connection of centuries of writers, both in print and thought, woven in the tapestry of words. So yes, I still weep at things I know are not wholly important, but instances like that make me care. Yeah, that can happen. Thanks.
Yeah, I love how you capture the communal spirit of literature, which is what Writers Week is all about. I mean, how many stories we've heard, how many truths we've heard from students and teachers and visitors. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, that was awesome. I liked too how that there will come soft rains, even just those words. There are times when I look out the window and it's raining and I think of, those 5 words, there will come soft rains. So yeah, just the beauty in the language.
Yeah, I don't remember when I first read that. I was probably in high school, but it was in the Martian Chronicles, and later on I kept coming back to that because it's a gorgeous poem. It's just a gorgeous poem. Sad, but gorgeous.
So you said that
Yeah, people do
Lupin
that.
made you cry, but I'm sure you had some emotional connections with literature throughout your life without crying. What I was wondering, Gary alluded to you as a writing teacher, one of the legendary writing teachers at FREM, I would say. What kinds of things did you do for your students to encourage their voice to come out?
I try to encourage them to write, and eventually if they write enough, they're going to have something that's worth reading and worth reading to somebody. I think that's you have to have an idea of who the audience is, and you talk about audience in novels or poems. Plays are fairly obvious, but you have this audience, and you have to keep them in mind, one way or the other. And I think that helps develop a voice for everybody.
Tony, what did you do to spark student writers?
I guess I agree. Just having them write and having them just tear down these barriers that they create for themselves. Like they needed to be formal. They wanted to know what I wanted, and instead of laying down my expectations necessarily, I wanted to hear what they had inside of them, which I think Kevin was alluding to. If you write enough, that something inside is gonna come out. Some inner truth is gonna come out that's important.
What I liked is encouraging I voice, which I know most students, until they get to high school, they're told not to use that, to use third person. And that's so removed and remote from what I think gives a person voice. You can write it in first person, and if somebody comes along and tells you got to do third person, you can go back and change that, but it'll probably still maintain that voice that you had through there.
Yeah, even with research projects, which some teachers are going to disagree with. Same question to you, Gary. What did you do to create or help encourage student voices?
Well, kind of like what you said, the students usually often have a really strong megaphone, internal megaphone saying, "Don't do it this way. It must be this way." And I tried to turn down the volume on that megaphone a little bit, and just write, just get something on paper. And once it's there, find what you like and amplify that and work on it. Like you said, you can always add formality, but that's a pretty rough place to start with. A lot of students also, because they're so busy, want to write the perfect paper the first time. You know, they want to say, okay, I have a half hour, I have to write this paper, and I don't have time to do it more than once. Well, a paper that is written under those conditions is going to end up a certain way. On the other hand, if it starts with, what do I really want to say about this? What am I trying to say? And then, you know, and then through experimentation and revision and further thinking and feedback, it might end up being something that they're really proud of.
I remember when we had Mary Carr, she said that she hates writing poetry. I thought, she's a poet. You know, what's so difficult about them? She said, I spend too much time rewriting. I rewrite it and rewrite it. And I may rewrite something 50 times before I think it's good enough. Well, maybe you don't have the time to do that, but rewriting pieces is a great idea. Matter of fact, the stuff I have here, I was playing with this morning.
Well, that's kind of an interesting behind the scenes thing of what you're looking at here. We've all been friends for 30 years. And as we prepared for this, we were sending each other stuff and getting recommendations or suggestions and incorporating them. So, you know, it's a never-ending process, and it's not just about school. We didn't do it because we had to. You know, we've been doing this because we know that it helps the writing.
Yep.
One last thing about the formal writing that students sometimes do is I used to call it suit writing. Like I felt like I had to put on a suit and a tie in order to read your paper. In class, you're this fun-loving, funny kid, and then I read your paper, it's like a different person. So I tried to encourage them to loosen their ties.
And that's the effect it has on a reader too. You know, that it's like I'm suddenly in a really formal situation, uncomfortably formal situation.
And some of it is selfish. I didn't want to read boring papers.
That's, yeah, exactly. Well, that was one of my things. Don't be boring. Don't be boring. Don't write boring stuff.
Kevin, you have another piece, Spirals?
Oh, I didn't print that up. So say spirals. As a preface here, I'd like to admit that I'm a lover of words. Spirals begins and ends with S. The way words appear on a paper or the cadence of words sound from my mouth and the mouths of others, and ideas which are often English teacher stuff when I'm thinking about the use of a or the or gerunds or present participles. But I confess, when I peel back this curtain, I'm a science geek. Thinking back, I can't really recall when I became aware of my condition or deterioration or destruction, as the case may be. Perhaps that one morning when, looking down at the floor drain in my shower, I found myself thinking about how particles of myself, skin follicles and hair, were twisting around to swirl, and pieces of me were subtly being torn from my body and washed to the river and another, until finally reaching the Gulf of Mexico. I'm disappearing, I thought. I connected this to watching a dirt devil spin down the dusty street in a failing central Illinois town, past boarded up deserted stores, and a failed gas station become a cell phone store, become a quick loan, transfer your car title store. The dirt devil spinning through unpaved streets, then detaching from the ground and melting away in the swirls of rising fog, drifting like small lazy clouds from the surface of a pond. Everything, I think, is melting. Fibonacci comes to mind. The swirls of a Fibonacci sequence becoming clearer and clearer in the shapes of a dissected nautilus shell, a sunflower, a pine cone, snails and fingerprints, a spider's web hanging from the underside of my porch, or a tornado rising in its self-created darkness, its power twisting steel fencing and metal roofs. And if I look closely enough, maybe I discovered Dorothy pedaling her bike with Toto in her basket, or the massive clouds in a hurricane from photos as seen from space, the hurricane larger than the states of North and South Carolina. And then perhaps the spirals of our solar system, from Mercury to Ultima Thule, 4 billion miles from us, but still swirling around a star we call the sun, which is but one normal star in a galaxy spinning and rushing through space. But because we are so small and so insignificant, we feel as if we're crawling through time. I am mystified. Swirls. From the smallest electron spinning around a nucleus to the great wave of Kanagawa, completed in the early 1800s, Fibonacci's realization of this natural imprint lies upon the universe. I am being torn apart, I believe. Hokusai's great wave washing over me. Maybe I'm the only one who feels like this or notices. We are all being driven by this sequence, and only sometimes am I aware. I watch as the arm of our solar system spins around inside a twisting galaxy that is drawn to the center, controlled by a black hole we cannot see or control. And sometime in the future, a black hole will swallow all that we are in the center of our galaxy, which will spin down the drain and will be sucked into a Fibonacci swirl at the end of the universe. And everything will join me in nothing. I turn off the shower and listen to the last drip, drip fall into the darkness while I dry myself with a towel made of bamboo. Bamboo is recyclable and easily grown and very sustainable. I can only do what one person can do. And maybe that is enough. Maybe if each one does what he or she can, that will be enough. Maybe. Bamboo, all right. I like it.
You have a way of taking big subjects, dark subjects, and making them seem personal. And the tone is actually kind of light there. Is that a conscious thing in this essay to keep it light?
Yeah, who else looks down at the drain and thinks about where that water is going? Nobody does, right? But yeah, then I got into the Fibonacci sequence stuff, and I thought, oh, yeah, here it is in this nautilus shell. Here it is in these sunflowers, and everything started to put together, right?
Well, I think that's why everybody can be a writer if they just notice what they notice. Just notice what you notice, and then kind of follow it, not down a drain necessarily, but wherever it goes, just notice what you notice, and play with it a little bit.
There's always something out there to write about, and you just have to notice it and then sit down and do it. Yeah,
and the problem is deciding what to choose from. It's not that I don't have anything to write about, it's that I have so much I don't even know what have I been thinking about, rather than trying to write about everything.
Yeah, you're the expert about what it feels like to be 17 in 2021. No, I don't know how it feels to be 17. You are the expert at that in your life.
Yeah, and other people are interested in it. Other people are interested in it. That's another little writer monkey mind thing, is nobody cares what I think. It's like, no, people care what you think, because that's how people get their own frames of reference, is sometimes through what other people think.
The line that always resonates with me is the more personal you are, the more universal you become.
Exactly. It becomes, what's my version of this? What's my version of, what do I notice? What patterns do I discern? And that is going to kind of bring us to the song that Tony's going to do in a minute. I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but it's notice not just what you notice physically, visually, but what do you care about? What do you notice that you care about? So cool. I don't know if you want to go to the song now.
Yeah, I guess we should probably say a few last words, and then I could just introduce the song, and we'll just end with the song, so we don't have to come back after that. So last words here. My last words are I'm always encouraged by young people, and I wish we could be there in person, and I look forward to being there in person next year. And we're always honored to be invited. We never take it for granted. Just hang in there. We're going to get through this.
Yes, I am sorry that I can't be there. I love being in that mindset, that atmosphere of all of these writers and the audience that goes with it. And I always think about how much work the teachers there at Friend do to put this together each year. And I'm happy that at least this way we can do that too.
There's something very special about Writers Week. When you walk in that auditorium, you see that banner hanging on the wall and that little rug out in front of the podium, you know it's something big is going to happen. And I'm so grateful for everybody who keeps it going and who has taken something from it and given something back to it, either in the program or just out in the world. You know, Writers Week has put a lot of stuff out in the world, and I'm so glad that it's continuing to do that. You know, I saw when this whole pandemic thing started, I saw somebody on the CBS Sunday morning show, believe it or not, one of the doctors has said this thing's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm kind of hopeful that right now maybe we're starting to see the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And one last thing about Writers Week, we're so happy and appreciative that it's in good hands with Russ and Gina, and we love you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to drop in a slideshow of a song. And I was born in Italy in the province of Benevento, a small town called San Salvatore. It probably had 1,000, 2,000 people back when I was born. And my dad was 37 when he decided to come here. He came here for 6 months and then he sent for the rest of his family. And if you knew my dad, he was the most timid guy, just bowed to authority. For him to make that move, that journey at 37 years old is still remarkable to me. And I always think what I would be doing if he hadn't made that decision. I'd probably be a farmer right now. So this song is about that, what could have been. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next year.
We're hopeful, yes.
You stay in those Benevento fields, where all you need is the dirt at your feet, rooted as your grain. You bend and sway, know where you need to be. You sow your seeds and sift your grain. Thank the sun and wait for rain. Don't need much, just your table's full. Fruit and wine, your heart's true. That old country where you'll be forever. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. Don't need much, just your table's full. Fruit and wine, your heart's true. We left those Benevento hills so long ago, yet they still call to me. Left my roots behind, so many roads that I'll never know. I wonder about who I'd be if I'd have ended up same old me. Don't need much, just your table's full. Fruit and wine, your heart's true. tree flows through me like a river. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. Don't need much, just your tables full, fruit and wine, your heart's true. We left, you stayed, you stayed, you stayed, you will stay.